Hello everyone, this is Miss Casey with Fibo Kids Art Academy and welcome back to another wonderful Fibo art class. Today we are going to be starting a new series all about baking. And for today's class we are going to be learning about cake design and creating our very own cake. Now this could be for any occasion, any event. We're going to learn how cake design works and the process of cake decorators and then we'll be creating our very own. So we're going to get very creative. We're going to have a lot of fun for today's class. So first, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to need. So on my table, you can see the sample of the project that we're going to be creating today. Again, we're going to be creating our very own cakes, and we are going to be using markers and chalk pastel. Okay, so those are the materials that we'll need. And before we actually start on our project, I want to show you a little bit about what goes into cake design when bakers go to create cakes. So here I have some pictures of inspiration. Now for these cakes, they are for many different events. They are created for different reasons. It all just depends on the client, the person that is purchasing the cake from you. So they give you an idea of what they want and for what event this birthday cake is going to be created for. And that is up to you to create a beautiful cake however you want to design it. So here you see a cake with flowers made by the frosting. They have cute little butterflies all around. And then here we have a cake, a nice big cake. It has 4 different layers and it is a lot of different things going on. It's a beautiful little sea creature cake. You see all of the fish. Now, sometimes these decorations are made from edible things like frosting or something called fondant, which is just a lot of sugar that people sculpt into different items for your cake. But some things are just like toys or actual items that are not able to be eaten and used to decorate your cakes. So this is a really fun one. And then we have a couple of other ones where you can have little mini cakes on top of a layer. So you see the donut and then some drips of frosting or syrup, and then you see this rainbow one with lots of different colors. So again, all of these cakes are made for different occasions and for different reasons. You see this one where a little creature or item is set on the top, a little decoration like a monkey, some bananas, all of that fun stuff. You can use candy or any other items to actually be made into your decorations. Now, for the process of cake design, you start out with a sketch, and that's basically what we're going to be doing today. We're going to create the drawing of our cake because we can't create a real cake today. We can't bake it in our kitchen right now, but maybe you'll start off with this process and one day be able to create the cake that you are drawing today. So here you see another sketch, and when bakers go to sketch out their cake designs, of course they want to write notes to themselves so they know what these little decals and decorations are supposed to be, maybe how they're going to create it, if they're going to use candy or frosting or fondant. And so there's a lot of different things that go into cake design. So now that we know just a little bit about our cake design, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to put my sample over to the side and our materials over to the side for now. First, what we're going to be starting with is our practice draw. So you can go ahead and take out your practice paper. All right, now when you have your practice paper out, make sure it is vertical, up and down. Okay, now I'm going to be showing you just the very simple shapes to create a layer of cake. Now, not all cakes are round like the ones that we're going to be making today, but it is just going to be a very simple shaped cake. It's going to be one of the easiest shapes to create. And I'm going to be showing you 3 different layers, a 3-tiered cake. However, After this practice draw, when we get into our final draw, you are more than welcome to make it less than 3 layers. If you want 2 layers or maybe just 1 layer, that's all up to you. And then you can also, of course, add any other details, anything that you want to make your cake however you'd like to create it. But first, to start off, we are going to grab out our drawing materials. So you're going to start with a pencil. Make sure that you're drawing nice and lightly. And I'm going to be using a Sharpie so that way you can see my lines better on your screen. Okay, so I have my Sharpie. And first what we want to do is start with our top layer. Now I'm going to start up toward the top. And again, we're going to make these round shapes for our layers of cake. And the top layer is usually the smallest because you want a nice base that is thick and heavy enough to hold any other layers that come on the top. Okay, so for our top layer, we're going to see the full top of it. So we want to start off with a nice wide oval. Now you don't want it to be too thick because it is the first layer, so we want it to be small enough. Once you have that flat oval up at the top, that's for the top of your first layer, then you're going to go to the sides of your oval and just draw 2 straight lines, one from the left side and one from the right side. Now again, this is your first layer. You don't want it to be too big, so those 2 lines coming down are not going to be too long. Now once you have them at the same point, you're just going to end that layer of cake with a curved line from the left to the right side. Now again, we want this top layer to be the smallest. Then once we have that first top layer, next what we're going to do, because this first layer is sitting on another layer, this second layer that we draw, we're not going to be able to see the full top of that cake. So we're going to come over to the side, just a little bit above where this first layer ends, and you're going to imagine that you're drawing another flat oval, but you don't see the back of that oval because this first layer is sitting on it. So you just see the sides and the bottom of that oval. The rest of it is just sitting right behind that first layer. Now once you have that oval for the top of the second layer, you're just going to repeat the process. Find the sides of that oval and draw a vertical line on the left and a vertical line coming down on the right. Again, making sure that it's not too long, but it can be a little bit bigger and longer than your first layer. But once you have those vertical lines at the same point, go ahead and just finish up that layer with the curved line at the bottom. So now I have my 2-layer cakes, but again, I'm going to be showing you how to make a 3-layered cake, so 3 tiers. So we are going to just be recreating the second layer again for the third layer and making it just a little bit bigger because we want the base layer, the last layer, to be the biggest and strongest so it can hold all those other layers. So we're going to come right back to the second layer of cake. Again, we want to start just a little bit above the bottom, and we want to go with the top of our third layer with a nice flat oval. Again, we're not going to be able to see the back of that oval because it is covered by that second layer. So you're just going to see the left, bottom, and right side of that oval. Make sure it's wider and bigger than those other 2 layers. And then once you have that oval, you're going to go again over to the sides and draw your vertical line. And this one can be much longer and taller than your first 2 layers. Once you have those 2 lines on the sides, go ahead and finish up your cake, connect it at the bottom. So now we have our 3-layered cake. Now again, this is just the basic shape of our cake. If you want to do some different details and different ways to make your cake, we can do that in the final draw. So for example, if you want only 2 layers of cake or if you want only a 1-layer cake, you may just make your 1 layer and have it a little bit taller than all of these layers. So however you want to do that, if you want to just have the 2 layers and you just wouldn't add the last layer, So however you want to do that. But now that we got an idea of how to create a 3-layered cake, let's go ahead and put our practice draw to the side because now is our final draw. So now we get to have fun, get all of our decorations, our details, and finalize what our cake is going to look like. Alrighty. So once you are ready, go ahead and make sure you have your final draw out, your final paper. And this paper, we are using dry material, so this paper can be any paper that you have. I do recommend it is a little bit thicker and nicer than your practice paper, but we are just going to use chalk and marker, so it should be fine if it's a thin piece of paper. Just make sure to turn it up and down, that's vertical, and then again you're going to be drawing with your pencil. I'm going to be using my Sharpie. So we're just going to start off with what we did in our practice draw. We're going to have those basic shapes, but keep in mind if you do want to change anything, now is the time. I'm going to continue doing those the 3-layer cake, so if you want to follow along with me, please do so. But if you want to change some things up, go ahead and do that. You may need a pause at some time, and that's okay as well. So first what we're going to start with up at the top is that first layer. For the first layer, we're going to have a nice flat oval for the top of the cake. Remember, it's not too wide, not too big. The first layer is a little bit smaller than all the rest of the layers. And then once you have that first oval, that first layer, at the top, you're going to draw 2 vertical lines down from the sides. Remember, the lines on the side, you don't want too long. And once you have your sides lined up, go ahead and just finish it off with the curved line at the bottom to connect from the left to the right. Once you have that first layer, just going to go right back to the side and draw another flat oval for the second layer. And again, for the second layer, we won't be able to see the full oval. The back of that oval is hidden by the first layer. Kind of looks like a hat right now. But once you have that oval for the second layer, you can go ahead and draw those 2 vertical lines on the side. You can make them a little bit longer than the first layer, but you don't want them to be too long if you are deciding to add a 3rd layer. Once you have those lines, you can go ahead and connect at the bottom from left to right. And lastly, we're going to add our 3rd layer. Now, one thing that I'm going to change about my drawing is rather than having just a full cake at the bottom, a full layer of cake, I'm actually going to have a little piece of the inside being shown. So it's going to look like a little piece of the cake has been taken and you can see the inside of my cake. That's going to kind of allow me to get creative to show whoever's looking at my picture what kind of cake it is. So in order to do that, we're basically going to be doing the same shape that we have, that we did in our practice draw. So you're going to start on the left side of your second layer. Start a little bit above the bottom of that cake. Go ahead and draw the oval for the top. And then draw the sides of the cake, however long you want. Go ahead and draw the bottom of your cake, finish that up. Okay, now it looks just like we did in our practice draw. Nothing really looks different right now, but I'll show you how you can change it to make it look like a slice of cake has been taken out so you can see what's inside. So wherever you want that slice of cake to be taken out, you're just going to go ahead and draw a triangle from the bottom oval, that last layer, like a little triangle. And then following wherever those lines are, on the front of the cake on that last layer, you're just going to draw 2 lines that come down, straight. Okay. And then what makes it look more like a slice has been taken out rather than just a stripe on the cake is you want to take your eraser and erase this part right on the inside from the bottom of that oval on that third layer. That's going to make it look a little bit more like it's taken out. And then you also want to take your eraser and erase the bottom line. Now for perspective, to make it look like the cake is going in toward that corner, we're going to go ahead in the middle if you want a filling or, a different kind of part of your cake in the middle. You can go ahead and add 2 lines that follow your top line, make them look a little parallel. That's going to show you that there's like a filling or something inside the cake other than just the cake batter. And then at the very bottom on the left side, you're going to go ahead and add a 3rd line, again matching all of those lines so it's all in the correct perspective. And that's going to make it look like a slice has been taken out and your cake is going in toward that edge. Now again, that's just optional. You don't have to have that on your cake. If you want a full cake, you don't want to show a slice, that's totally fine. But that's what I did for my sample here. So I just wanted to show you how you could create that. All right, so the main key points is just erasing the inside, the bottom of the oval and the bottom of that layer. So go ahead and erase that, add the inside at the bottom, and your little slice of cake is done. Now once you have that, next what we're going to do is draw the platter that the cake is sitting on. So for the platter, we're going to go up toward the middle of that 3rd layer and draw a curved line on both sides for the back of the platter or plate that your cake is sitting on. And then at the bottom, underneath your 3rd layer, you don't want to draw too big of a curved line, but you are going to draw a curved line that comes around. We don't want it to be too curved because it's a nice stretched out, cropped platter, so we're not going to see too much of that curve down at the bottom. And once you have that plate or that platter, if you want it to look like it's on a pedestal kind of platter, you can add a little leg down at the bottom in the middle. Or if you want it to be just a regular plate, you can go ahead and add, don't add anything at the bottom, but you can definitely add a table if you'd like. Even if you have a pedestal platter, you can still add a table if you would like. I'm just going to go ahead and leave mine with a simple pedestal platter. And then is the fun part. Now that all those basic shapes and basic details are drawn on, now you get to decide what your cake is going to look like. But before you just go crazy, I want you to think about possibly maybe an event or an occasion coming up soon. If you were the client, what would you want your cake to look like? For what special event or occasion is this cake being made for? If maybe you have a brother or sister or a sibling, their birthday is coming up soon, maybe you can create or design a cake that could possibly be for them. Maybe if, again, there's a special occasion coming up soon in your family or for your friends, you can design a cake that would be made for them. Think of stuff that they like if they're super into mermaids or sea life, sea creatures, like what we saw in the beginning, maybe that could be your inspiration. If they're really into unicorns and rainbows and glitter, maybe that could be your inspiration. Whatever you need to help inspire you, go ahead and think about that. But if you want to just make a cake for yourself, think about things that you might like or things that would be fun for you to have on a cake. A lot of the times the decorations, if they're not edible, those are usually saved. At least I know my family, we like to save things like souvenirs from those special events or occasions if they come on a cake. So that's always fun to think about as well. But once you're ready and you've thought about what you might want your cake to look like, now is the time to have fun and get creative and start decorating. All right, so you can imagine that this is an actual cake right in front of you. What is the frosting going to be? What flavor? What color? all of that fun stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be inspired by that rainbow unicorn cake that we saw earlier in class. And I'm not going to do exactly what we saw, but again, that's what inspiration is. You kind of take a picture or an idea and you make it your own, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this first layer here. Now I want some drips from syrup or fudge, whatever I want dripping down. Now in order to draw those drips, you're going to go from one side, whether you want it on just the first layer or all of your layers. You want to come from one side underneath the oval. I would recommend doing it a little bit higher up. You don't want it too low, but it's up to you. And you're just going to start doing these long and short letter U's. You can have some kind of just simple. They don't all have to be dripping low. You just have these long and short letter U's until you reach the other side. Okay, and again, you can do that on one layer or all of your layers. That's up to you. Now, I would recommend if you do have a topper or a huge decoration or creature or character that you want to add on your cake, I would recommend to do that right at the top of your first layer because that is usually the layer where those bigger items are put, and it also will be able to give you a little bit more room to add whatever it is you want to add onto your cake. So with that said, I'm actually going to add a nice big rainbow right in the top on my first layer. And I'm just going to draw nice big rainbow lines. Now, whatever you draw, if that line from your cake on the oval gets into your decoration or whatever you end up drawing, if that item is not meant to be see-through, like mine, I want it to be solid rainbow, then I want to take my eraser and erase any lines that go inside. So think about whatever it is that you're adding. Think about what you might need to erase depending on what you're drawing. Okay, now I might want to add some fun little decorations, maybe some stars on my rainbows. Okay. And now that I have my topper, I'm just going to go ahead and continue decorating with the frosting and the different details that I want on my cake. Sometimes frosting, you have different tips from the tubes that the frosting, that you dispense the frosting with, and the tips can be like star tips or they have different tips. So whatever tip that you have, sometimes that creates a different look for your frosting. Sometimes it helps you create small little circles. Sometimes it helps you create like whipped cream type of like dollop with pointy with points at the end. Sometimes it helps you create leaf shapes or flower shapes, all those different fun type of shapes with just frosting. So you can kind of have, do a little design like that depending on what you want your frosting to look like. So for example, in my sample here, I have these little swirls to make them look a little bit like roses from some of the frosting tips, or there's these little circles. They could be like little candies that maybe you set along the bottom of your cakes, or they can come from the frosting. I have leaves. Now this could definitely be something that's made of fondant or a candy, but it can also be something that's made from the frosting and the tips. So again, have fun. This may be your first time ever thinking about what baking and cake design looks like. So if you have a little help, or if you need a little help or have a little trouble, just do the best that you can. And the most important thing is that you're having fun. You're decorating a cake all for yourself, or maybe a friend or a family member. Okay, so at the bottom of my rainbow cake here, I think at the very bottom I am going to add these little circles for some decoration. Now I'm just going to set that right at the bottom along that line from my first layer of cake. And I'm just adding a pattern of circles. They're all circles following that line there. Now for the second layer of cake, I'm going to have it pretty simple since I have a lot of decoration on my first layer. I'm actually going to add a stripe to make it look like the stripes of the rainbow. So when I add my stripe, since this is a curved object, I want to make sure that those lines are curved as well. And I want my cake to follow the colors of the rainbow. So for this part of the cake, I'm going to have it red, like the first color of the rainbow. And then each stripe is going to be a different color. So it's going to be red, orange, yellow, green, and then my bottom layer is going to have purple and blue. Okay, now I think I will go ahead and add another set of little circles down at the bottom. Again, just a simple pattern of circles following the very bottom line from the second layer. But you can do whatever you'd like. And then I'm just going to leave this bottom layer solid. Let the colors do the fun and magic. And again, I'm going to add a little decoration, these small circles along the bottom just to keep my cake consistent. But you can definitely add much more detail and decoration however you want your cake to look. This is all up to you. Okay, now that I have my cake decorated how I want, if you need a little bit more time with your details and your decorations and all of your creativity, please feel free to pause and then press play when you are ready to continue and you're done with your drawing. But once you are done and ready, make sure any lines that need to be erased are completely erased, like that if you have the slice in your cake or you have any topping or toppers that go in front of your oval, you want to make sure to erase those. And then once you are done drawing, you're going to go ahead and take out a permanent marker or a Sharpie, just like I have. And you want to make sure to outline all of those lines. That is why we want to double check that those lines that we need erased are definitely erased. Now, I couldn't erase, so I have these lines scribbled out. I'm just going to go ahead and color over those. It will still give you the idea of what we need to do for our coloring steps. So again, if you need some time to outline, feel free to pause and then press play when you are ready to continue. Alrighty friends, so I'm going to go ahead and start on our final coloring steps. Make sure all your drawing materials are put away. And first what we're going to be starting with are our markers. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my markers. And again, you guys are choosing your colors, you're choosing how you color it, all of that. But for your marker steps, I recommend you keep the small details for your markers only. I would not recommend large, big areas for markers because that may take you a very long time. We want to use our large areas for our chalk pastels. Okay, so save those areas for your chalk pastels. That will make it much easier to get everything done and colored in. So for my project, as you can see, I don't have too many small areas, but for my project, I'm going to be coloring in the rainbow and little syrup or fudge here dripping down, and my small circles with my markers. I also have a little bit of filling inside, and I'm going to be coloring that in with my markers as well. And then everything else I'm going to leave for chalk pastels. So for my rainbow here, I'm going to take a red for the first color. Now, yours doesn't have to be a very traditional rainbow. If you like certain colors, there's a lot of neutral rainbows that I've seen that are all neutral colored rainbows, pinks, browns, yellows, things like that. And those are really pretty rainbows. If you have a certain color scheme that you want to use, you can definitely stick to that. If you did a certain design on your cake, like the sea creature mermaid cake, you want it all to be blues and greens, you can definitely just stick to blues and greens. In my sample here, it's a little bit more like a flowery spring kind of cake. So I have like peaches and browns. I have my pinks, my greens, and kept it very simple. So it really just depends on what you want your cake to be. You are the cake designer today. You get to decide, okay? So for my rainbow here, I don't have all of the colors of the rainbow that there are. I just did a few different rainbows, so I'm just going to do as much as I can. Do my red. Now when you're using your marker, you want to make sure you outline first. Now I don't want to color in my stars with this color. I'm going to do a different color for my stars. Maybe I can also keep them white, just depends. But I want to outline first. So I just have red for that first stripe. So I'm going to color that in now. Okay, and then my next stripe is going to be orange. So I'm going to take my orange, outline first. Now the nice thing about rainbows is that the colors next to each other are usually really nice and they look really well together, and they also blend really well together. So when I go into blend my stripes, they're going to be colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So that really helps make those colors blend nicely and look nicely together. So when you are going to take your colors, just kind of think about the colors that you choose. If you are using complementary colors like yellow or purple or orange and blue, try not to get them too close together to where they mix. If they sit right next to each other, especially with markers where they're not going to mix too much, they're just going to sit right next to each other, and that will really make your object stand out. But you really want to think about color choice. So next I'm going to do a yellow. Now I have a star in that yellow stripe as well. So I think I'm going to keep my stars white, so that way I don't have to worry about having a yellow star in a yellow stripe. Or maybe I'll do my stars blue since I won't have a blue stripe. Gotta just improvise, make things work. So I'm going to do a green next for my last stripe here. Okay, but once I am done coloring that in, if you kind of followed along with me and you have more stripes to color in, go ahead and keep coloring those in. And I think I will do my stars blue just to kind of add a little pop of color. All right. Now that I have my rainbow filled in, I have my clouds. If you want to color your clouds in with a specific color, you can do that if you have clouds. But I think I'm just going to add a little bit of shading. So I'm going to take my gray here. Just add shading to one side. Maybe add a couple of curved lines for some detail and texture. But now that I have my topper, next I'm going to fill in the fudge or the syrup that is dripping down on that first layer. So I think I'm going to do a nice light pink color. Let's see. You do this like light peach pink color, just so all the dark bright colors can stand out. I'm going to go ahead and outline first. So if you have any topper or whatever designs you have on the top, just make sure if you did do these drips that you go around very carefully. Just outlining. It's the whole top layer. It's basically just a whole bunch of syrup or frosting that you've laid over on the top, and it just kind of drips down. And then I also want to get those drips outlined, and now I'm going to fill them in. And once I get that all filled in, I'm going to move on to some other areas that I would fill in with my markers. So those areas are going to be my small little circles at the end of each layer. And I think just to bring out the stars, I'm going to use the same color that I used for my stars. I don't have to do each layer the same color, but you can if you want. It's all up to you. It's like a turquoise, blue-green kind of color. So it's not necessarily the specific color of the rainbow. I think that will help make it stand out. Now, if you have really, really small areas like these small little circles here, usually you just outlining will end up filling it in. So just using the tip is fine for these smaller areas. And don't forget, if you added a little slice cut out of your cake, you can also use your markers to fill in whatever you want your filling to be. If you decided to add maybe some fruit inside, have something kind of spilling out of your cake, maybe you have some of the filling dripping down. You can use multiple colors if needed, or just one color depending on what that is. Now, you may have a lot of decoration and designs that you need to fill in with your markers. I'm coming up to the end of my smaller areas that I'm going to be filling in with my markers. So once you are done with that, we're going to be moving on to chalk pastel. If you are still working on your markers because you have so much, that's no problem. Again, this is a recording. All you'll need to do is just pause the video and press play when you are done and ready to continue. All right, so for my last marker step, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the feeling inside of my cake. And I think I'm going to maybe do like a little maybe like strawberry filling. So I'm going to take this dark pink here and go in and fill in the inside. All right. Yummy. Now that I have all of those decorations and designs filled in with my markers, again, if you have anything else that you need to fill in with your markers, please do that. Next, I'm going to be using my chalk pastels. So I'm going to move my markers out, bring my chalk pastels over, and the chalk pastels are going to be used for any leftover large areas. So that's pretty much all the rest of my cake here. Now, again, I had a pattern in mind with the first layer being all solid red, and then the stripes in the middle with the rest of the colors, and then the last layer is going to be finishing up with the colors of the rainbow. So I'm going to start with the red here. And when you use your chalk pastels, especially for medium areas, these aren't too big of areas, you want to maybe outline around first to make sure you don't get anywhere you don't want the chalk to be. And then you can go ahead and use the side, very carefully add a little bit of color. Okay, then you can take one finger or two depending on how big your area is and fill that in. Try your very best not to get into your marker. However, if you do get into the marker areas, that is okay. You can take an eraser if needed and you can kind of erase that chalk out of those areas. Just try your best to keep it nice and clean because chalk pastels can get dirty and messy. And once you are done filling in that area, if you have any extra chalk left over, you can just take your paper, flip it over, and tap the extra dust off onto your table. Yummy. Okay, next I'm going to use the next three colors of the rainbow for those stripes in the middle. So I did red. Next, of course, we have orange. So I'm going to take my orange and I'm just going to use it on this first top stripe for my second layer of cake here. And you know, it's a smaller area, so I'm just going to use a tip to add a little bit of color into the rest of that. Then I can go ahead and use a finger, just one again or two, depending on how big your area is. And you can go ahead and fill that in. Now you may be filling in your cake in different ways, depending on what you created. So just take your time, try your best, and the most important thing is that you're having fun and you're being clean and careful, taking your time with your picture. So again, if you have any extra dust, go ahead and tap that off. Next, I'm going to use a yellow. I'm going to take my yellow and get into this next layer, and this is what I was talking about with those rainbow colors, if you happen to be using rainbow colors like me, how they are next to each other on the color wheel, so if they do happen to blend or mix, they're going to blend nicely. I want to try to get them as bold and separate from each other as possible, but if they do happen to mix, that is okay. I'm going to get my yellow in there. Once I have that, I'm going to go and flip my paper over and tap off that extra dust. And next I'm going to have green. So I'm going to take, I think I'm going to use like a light green, and I'm going to outline, use the tip for those smaller stripes. And then I'm going to take my finger and blend that in nice and carefully. Now with these little small circles at the bottom, I did get some chalk pastel in that, but that's okay. Like I said, if it got into any of your marker areas, you can take an eraser and just kind of clean it up a little bit. But if it's not too bad, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so I have those three stripes in the middle. Next, I'm going to take my last two colors of the rainbow, blue and purple. And again, those colors are next to each other. They look really nice blended with each other. So rather than having a separate stripe for those two colors, I'm going to make this one look a little different. Rather than solid or stripes, I'm going to actually create a gradient showing these two colors mixing with each other. Because you can do that, as we saw earlier in those inspiration photos, you can do that with your frosting. So it's super fun and it will look really nice. So I'm going to take this blue here. I'm going to outline around the top part of my cake. Now I am going to be showing you some shading as well. So if you use multiple colors like me, that can be a little tricky to get that shading in there. So you just want to try your best. I'm going to go about halfway into the cake with the blue. And then I'm going to switch over to my purple. More like a darker blue. Let's see. Alright, got purple here. And purple is a pretty dark color. It overpowers a lot, so I'm just going to kind of lightly add that into the bottom of that layer. And then I'm going to take my fingers. You can take one or two depending on how big your last layer is, and get that blended in. Alright, so I'm blending in the purple now. When you want your colors to mix, you want to push some of that purple and blue into each other as they touch. That will help you get them blended in nicely. Alright, so finishing up with that. Then of course I want to dust off that extra chalk dust. Now you may get a little bit of fingerprints going crazy on the white parts of your paper. If that's the case, that's okay. We are going to be using chalk pastel in the rest of our picture. But if you do want to take a little clean break, you can always take a wipe or a wet paper towel, especially if you're using dark colors, vibrant colors. You can go ahead and wipe off your hands. And then you can take an eraser and clean off any fingerprints that you might see around your paper. Get that looking a little bit neater, nicer. Now, if you do have an opening in your cake where the little slice was taken out, you get to decide what kind of cake you make. Is it vanilla? Is it chocolate? Is it marble, which is vanilla and chocolate mixed together? Is it strawberry cake? So I'm going to actually make say that I've made a vanilla cake. So I'm going to use like a yellow or maybe just like a light tan color. And I'm going to go inside where that slice of cake is. Add a little bit of tan here where I want my vanilla cake to be showing. Blend that in. Dump off that extra dust. And now my cake looks like a real actual cake. So again, depending on what you decided to draw and how many decorations and designs you added, your cake is going to look a little different. But no matter what, it's all going to look good and fun and creative, and I can't wait to see what you guys created. So next, what we're going to do with our chalk pastels is we are going to finish up with coloring in the platter or the plate that you've set your cake on and our background, and then I'll show you also how we can add in some shading. So we're going to actually start with our shading first. And whatever color you decided to use for your cake, for those larger areas with your chalk pastels, you are going to add in a darker version of that color to shade with. So I have my red for the top layer. So I'm going to use this like purple, darker red here to add some shading. You can even use brown for a red. And you can just choose one side. Go along that one side and also the bottom of your cake. If you have these drips, you can also go along the bottom of the drips. That will usually cause some shadow on your cake. Just a little bit of color. And then I'm going to take a darker version for these stripes. So for my orange, I'm going to take a red, get the left side under my cake, on the left side there in the front of the cake. And then for my yellow, I'm going to take an orange, maybe not super bright orange, but a lighter orange, just along the left side. And then for my green, just a little bit of a darker green, again, just on that left side. Okay, and then for my blue, take a darker blue. This was a dark blue here. So again, just on that left side, underneath the cake a little. On the left side there. And since I have a slice, I'm just going to cut it off at the slice, maybe add a little bit on the other side. And then for purple, I can just go in. Since I didn't press too hard with my purple, I can go in a little bit harder just to make a little bit of a darker color for that purple. And then you're just going to take your finger and blend all of that in together. With the chalk, it will be nice and easy to get that mixed together. And you just want to nicely feather, softly blend it together. So you have a nice light shadow. Now if you do a little bit too much, you can always go back in with the original color. Add a little bit more of that original color. Okay, and then for my orange, get that blended in here. Once everything is blended, you'll be able to see how that shading works out. Doesn't need to be super darker or much darker, just as long as you see the difference. So you go from dark to light or your original color. Okay, now that I've added shading on that, if you have any areas with your marker, like these drips, you can take a darker color and add some shading in there, or you can use the same color and just add more layers, and that will also help add in some shadow, some shading. Of course, if you have a topper, wherever that topper is, that will also add some shading as well, some shadow. Okay, so you can kind of see the difference with that. And then for your background and your platter, you can choose any color. If you want your plate or platter to be gray, you can do that. Don't forget, if you have the slice, to go inside a little bit. Don't forget the pedestal if you have one. Then you can also blend that in. And you don't want to forget a shadow. You want to keep that shadow consistent. So if you added shading on the left side of your cake, you want to add shading to the left side of your platter or plate. I'm using a little bit of gray, or sorry, black, since I added gray for my plate. Just a little bit. I don't want it to be too dark. Get a little shadow there, and where the leg is on the pedestal. Okay, and then your background can be any solid color, any color that you want. Make sure it's something that will help your cake stand out. So maybe I'll do like a light blue. Just keep it nice and light in the background, so everything else stands out. And you can just add that color using the side of your chalk pastel. Depending on if you added a table or not, you can add multiple colors. Just get that blended in, nice and solid, so that way your cake is the only thing that is nice and bright and stands out. Make sure to blend that in. And then shake off any extra dust. And that is our cake project today, everyone. So wonderful job. If you need a little bit more time getting everything shaded and blended, you can go ahead and do that. Press pause. But that is the end of our project. So wonderful job, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in on our class today. Don't forget to get cleaned up, wipe off your hands and your table, and then make sure to show all your friends and family your wonderful, beautiful cake design. And I hope you guys are looking forward to more things and learning about baking because it's a super fun series that we've started. So thank you guys all again for joining in, and I hope you guys learned just a little bit more about cake design if you didn't already know. All right, bye everyone.